Whether it's a hot time in Florida or a rainy night in Georgia,
looking for trouble?
It's the perfect time for the TCBCast, an unofficial Elvis fan podcast.
Oh, yes, sir. Good to see you go up. Just glad to bring you the hottest thing in the country, real hot and blue, coming to WHBQ in Memphis, Tennessee.
With your hosts, Justin Gosman and Gurdip Ladar. The TCBcast is on the air.
Welcome to TCBCast, an unofficial Elvis Presley fan podcast. I'm Justin Gosman.
I'm Gurdip Ladar.
Gurdip, how are you doing this week?
Doing well. Getting used to being back at work and stuff after the Christmas vacation and stuff. Everyone's kind of feeling it, but getting back into the groove. How about you?
Yeah, things are good. And of course, we got to say, happy birthday, Elvis, because this is coming out. Well, this will be dropping on the main feed just shortly after Elvis's birthday. But yeah, there's apparently a lot of Elvis birthday stuff going on.
What birthday is this?
Let's see. Well, this would be 88, I think. Yeah, 88th birthday.
Crazy. I guess people will be doing that happy birthday thing. You know those people when they go to the gate at midnight and they sing happy birthday? Let me ask you something. If you were in Memphis and you went to go see Graceland, whatever, and you still had a couple of days and it's the 7th of January and you're in your hotel room and it's, say you can't sleep and it's close to midnight, would you go down there and sing happy birthday and hang out with your peeps?
No, that late at night, I'm staying in the hotel room. I am
snoring, playing your games.
Snoring.
What if by chance I have to be there at the same time? I'm like, hey Justin, I'll ring you up. Let's go check out this happy birthday thing.
Yeah, I'm gonna leave you hanging. You'll show up and I won't be anywhere in sight.
Yeah, you'll see me on those videos that get posted the next day, singing at the top of my lungs.
Singing happy birthday. Oh, no.
Not that there's anything wrong with that. I'm not.
It's just.
People. If you find joy in that, pleasure in that, I mean, don't let us knock it. Like if that's your thing, then go for it.
Yeah, absolutely. And there are certainly people who do make those pilgrimages, not only for obviously Elvis Week in August, but for the birthday. And of course, as I was mentioning, they are going to do a big proclamation ceremony. Apparently, Lisa Marie's going to be there this year. Alton Mason, who played Little Richard in the movie, is going to be there. So yeah, it looks like it's going to be a good event. Obviously, if this is dropping after, so I'm sure it was a good event. It's going to be live streamed. The other big things that are happening around the birthday, though, that I think are more interesting because they're not the same thing that happens every year. They're dropping a 30-minute making of Baz Luhrmann's Elvis documentary on HBO Max.
Crazy. And I just got rid of my Crave subscription, which is the equivalent of HBO Max here in Canada. So I'll have to figure out a way to watch that.
Yeah. And then, obviously, the Viva Las Vegas Toxic remix, which is officially now called Toxic Las Vegas, is out. What do you think?
Bright light city, gonna set my soul on fire. Got a whole lot of money that's ready to burn, so get those stakes up higher. There's 1,000 pretty women waiting out there. They're all living the devil may care, and I'm just a devil with love to spare. So viva.
Interesting name. Is it trying to diss Vegas because it's called Toxic Vegas
Rather than Viva? Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I mean,
I thought it was good. I think I told you earlier, just in private messages, like I'm not a biggest fan of Toxic, like the Britney Spears song, but this sounds good, surprisingly. And they added a few Elvis Easter eggs. I mean, if you're a fan of Elvis, you'll hear right away "Surrender" and "Little Sister," but it's nice that they threw it in.
Yeah.
I like the way they mixed it. It was good. What do you think?
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. I thought it was really fun, and honestly, I kind of wish there was more Britney Spears on.
You wish there was more Britney
Yeah,
Spears?
if it was like more like a proper mashup, but hey, it's for the Elvis movie, it makes sense. But yeah, I mean, for me,
I didn't know you were such a Britney Spears fan.
I'm not a huge, but like I enjoyed her stuff when I was younger, like a teen, and but when she was most popular, Toxic has always been an earworm. So yeah, I'm thrilled that we have it. It's a fantastic mix.
Is that some of her vocals in there?
Yes, yeah,
Okay.
they sampled some of her vocals in there as well. They never have her actually out and out complete
singing.
any lines or anything. Yeah,
No,
it's
but
just a little bit.
They had to get that. They'd have to get that cleared, obviously.
Sure, yeah, absolutely.
Now, any reason they held this back?
Well, obviously, for the there probably was a sample clearing issue with Toxic in terms of like commercial. But now they're confirming as part of the official artwork for the single that there is going to be a deluxe edition soundtrack for the movie. So this will be on that because it says from Elvis Original Motion Picture Soundtrack Deluxe Edition. So that's probably, I would imagine, where we will get some of these extra bits and songs that weren't on the original soundtrack, even the iTunes version, or the digital vertion. So because there's still quite a bit. There's Blue Suede Shoes. There's the I'll Fly Away. What else was there that didn't make it?
Can't Help Falling in Love.
Can't Help Falling in Love. Yep. So the very moody Can't Help Falling in Love. Yeah, there's a lot of different ones that I think will surface, and then I'm still looking forward to the score, the soundtracks, the incidental music from Elliott Wheeler. So that's going to be a lot of fun. But yeah, credit to Jamieson Shaw, who worked on the film on the music production end of things, and apparently put together this really fantastic remix of Toxic in Viva Las Vegas.
Nice, yeah. Hopefully everyone enjoys it, but you can let us know what you think of it.
Yeah. But yeah, other news that came out within the last week, there was a small update from The Wrap, who did a piece on Sony Pictures Animation and some of their upcoming projects for 2023. And there was a one-paragraph mention of Agent King, the Netflix series.
Wow. I forgot about that.
I know. This is the adult-oriented animated show that has been going on in the background for what, a couple years now?
Yep.
It's been in the works, and it was announced way before the Baz Luhrmann movie was releasing. But this is the one that let me just read the blurb here that it imagines Elvis as an undercover CIA agent. He shoots people in the head, and his pet chimpanzee snorts lines of cocaine. The Agent King art style is graphic and 2D with animation handled by Titmouse, and Elvis's costumes were designed by John Varvatos, the fashion designer.
Now, what does the whole cocaine thing have to do with anything?
It's that the people who are in charge of the show are trying to do this very edgy, sort of adult-oriented type series as opposed to a family-friendly thing.
Right. Huh. Okay. Well, that'll be interesting. It's a different take on Elvis. A lot of people who are traditional fans might raise their eyebrows at that, though.
Yeah. I mean, weirdly, it is being authorized by the estate. Priscilla was involved in giving some approval to it, I guess, kind of going back and forth with the scriptwriters and kind of addressing certain things that, the estate might have had issues with or whatever, but is going to be weird. I certainly saw a lot of reactions from people that were going, "Oh, this sounds horrible."
Right.
I can't imagine that with Sony Pictures Animation that, like, on a technical level, it will be bad. The scripts and whatever people have issue with, but we had to sit through Elvis from Outer Space, so this can only be up from there.
Yeah, I won't judge it until I actually see it myself. Yeah. Like, I see an episode. And once it drops, then, we'll probably do reviews. If this is a weekly show, we'll do weekly reviews on it. Kind of like we did when we did our book club, where we would have a little chunk of our show dedicated to that. Yeah,
sounds like a plan. And, so that's on the way. We don't have an official release date, and we don't know who's doing the voice of Elvis yet either. Right. So that'll be curious.
Austin Butler.
I don't know. They haven't said. I doubt that he would be interested in doing that. So
Yeah, probably not. Aren't they also doing some free screenings of Elvis?
they are, yeah. On the birthday, they're doing free screenings in some major metro areas.
Vancouver, one of them, but I'm not going to go see it because I have it at home. Why do I need to
Get
go
the 4K.
to the theater? I know.
So yeah, and then also we got some. Quite a few of our listeners sent us to make sure that we saw it, that Rolling Stone put out their list of top 200 singers of all time. And Elvis was ranked at number 17. Did you get a chance to look at this?
No. Who's on this list?
I mean, there's a lot. Let me just read you the top 20 just so that you have where Elvis kind of slots in.
Well,
there.
if number one isn't Sam Cooke or Stevie Wonder or Aretha Franklin, then I don't know.
Yeah, so number 20, Marvin Gaye. Number 19, Frank
20
Sinatra.
is Marvin Gaye?
Marvin Gaye, yeah.
What? That seems low.
Yeah. 19, Frank Sinatra. Number 18, Celia Cruz. 17, Elvis Presley. 16, Prince. 15, Bob Dylan.
What? Wait, now sorry, I know you don't you don't like when I interject while you're reading off, but how is Bob Dylan up there? Like, why is he beating Sinatra? Why is he beating Elvis? Why is he beating Marvin Gaye?
Yeah.
Like, he doesn't have a good singing voice. Like, his lyrics are great, and him singing his own songs are okay, but it's not like he has like a magnificent voice.
The hilarity is at the little paragraph or two at the top of the whole 200 list. The Rolling Stone basically admits their process is stupid and their list is meaningless because one of the excuses they give is that this is the greatest singers list, not the greatest voices, and that the reason why there isn't any opera is because our purview is pop music. So basically, words mean nothing to Rolling Stone.
So why'd they put out this list?
Well, for clickbait. But yeah, so top
go
four.
On. So go on. After,
it's all good.
After?
14, Freddie Mercury. 13, Patsy Cline. 12, John Lennon. 11, Little Richard. 10, Al Green. 9, Otis Redding. 8, Beyonce. 7, Stevie Wonder. 6, Ray Charles. 5, Mariah Carey. 4, Billie Holiday. 3, Sam Cooke. 2, Whitney Houston, and 1, Aretha Franklin.
Yeah, I don't have much of a problem with 1, 2, and 3, but I just think a lot of people. Where's Michael Jackson, by the way?
Oh, he's way down.
What? I mean, he had a good voice.
Michael Jackson's at number 86.
Holy crap! Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know, man. I mean, who would you like if you were not like 1 to 5, but who would you put in like a top 5?
I can't disagree with a lot of the list. Like Whitney Houston's on there, Freddie Mercury's on there. Elvis, while he had excellent vocal range over the course of his career, are we talking objective like capability or are we talking personal preference? Because favorite, yeah, obviously Elvis Presley would be, and that's, I think, again, people are conflating their personal favorites with Rolling Stone's favorites, which is basically what this list is. It's not even an objective list. Because again,
can you make an objective list?
You
like
can.
Everybody brings in their own personal preferences.
Yeah, and again, they're also leaving off certain genres because they just don't care about them, like opera.
Yeah, Pavarotti, excellent voice.
Pavarotti's not anywhere on the list, which is absolutely ridiculous. You can even go back to
Andre Bocelli.
Yeah, well, not only Bocelli, but also Caruso.
That's right.
Enrico Caruso, who is a phenomenal vocalist. The problem is that for modern audiences, his recordings are so old that, they just don't think of them that way. I think it's pretty useless to
Yeah, now you don't want to say it.
No, I think it's pretty useless because everyone's going to have different feelings about it.
Yeah.
You know, and that's why, like, the reason why there is a list is because it's there for clickbait and to get people talking about Rolling Stone, good or bad. And look, it worked. We're talking about it. So,
well,
good job, Rolling Stone.
If it was me, obviously in my 5 and not our order would obviously be, of course, Elvis and Sam Cooke, and I think I would put Stevie Wonder up there along with Tony Williams and Jackie Wilson.
Yeah.
So anybody wanted to know mine, that's where I go to. Obviously, I'm not like leaving out women because I don't like women singers. I think Mariah Carey and Aretha Franklin and Christina Aguilera all have great voices, and they would be right up there in that list. So that's you can tell where my vocal preferences lie.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing is that there is no such thing as an objective list. There's so much subjectivity.
No. But people don't like that, huh? They didn't like that Elvis was that low.
They didn't like that Elvis was that low. So
okay.
But again, I mean that's there are other fandoms, obviously like Michael Jackson fans didn't like that he was so low. So
yeah, I wouldn't put him in like the top of my list, but he would be up there. He'd be in the top 25 at least.
Yeah. So. But yeah, so that is that's it for the Elvis news. We do have a few new patrons. Want to shout out James, Jim Crompton, Suan Wishick, and Marie Svensson. Thank you so much for joining up over at patreon.com/TCBcast. Really appreciate that. Hopefully you're enjoying the extra bonus content. Let's see, what else? Anything else for you? Any Elvis news in your world?
The only thing I want is like not really news. It's just I told you my daughter came up to me and said that I guess during music class they were packing up and she just threw it out there, asked the teacher, "Oh, what do you think about Elvis?" And he said, for some reason, and she didn't follow up any question, he said that he was evil and a bad man. And I'm thinking, what? When she told me this, I was like, what does that mean? Like, I don't understand. So I don't know where this dude's coming from, but I was telling you that the next parent-teacher meeting will be interesting because I will ask about that, and I will let you guys know what brought that on. But yeah,
attribute that to Elvis Presley, like
yeah, that's weird. I didn't get that at all.
Like he jumps to Elvis Presley, but doesn't like. So if Elvis is evil, where the fuck is Hitler?
Yeah, I don't know. As I said, stay tuned. I asked my wife, and she's like, the dude's odd. So she's like, don't say anything. I'm like, I have to.
You're gonna.
I have to.
It's too funny.
Anyway.
Don't matter how it is. I'm evil. I'll tell you I'm evil. Oh, don't matter how it is.
Yeah, but that was all the Elvis stuff in my world.
All right. So next up is trivia. Gurdip, you're in the hot seat.
Oh no!
Yeah.
I never like being in the hot seat.
Well, this one might be all right. Let's see. First question: true or false? Graceland has 8 bedrooms.
True.
That's true.
Yeah, I just guessed. I have no idea how many bedrooms. Nor do I really care.
True or false? The day that Elvis was inducted into the Army was known to fans as Black Monday.
I'm going to say true.
That is also true. Good call.
Who calls it Black Monday? Wasn't there is it called Black Saturday where these bootleggers got caught or something like that?
I think so, yeah.
Where the day that some kind of convention, because I guess there was Elvis conventions around, and people would deal in bootlegs, and then one Saturday they were raided by the FBI. I can't remember. It was in that Vic Colonna book that we talked about long time ago. Vic Colonna was
years since I've read
one of the famous bootleggers who first started doing that kind of stuff in the late 70s, or I think he was doing it while Elvis was alive too, so maybe the mid 70s. He was the one who first released that Pearl Harbor show. So apparently it was called Black Saturday or something
like that. Yeah. Okay. This one is a multiple choice question. What amount did Elvis receive as a monthly salary in the Army? $83.20, $120.50, or $545?
I think it's A, 83.
$83.20 is correct.
Yeah, nice. I knew it wasn't a lot, and that 500 seems way too much for back in the day.
That's a lot of money back in the 50s.
Everybody would be enlisting.
Question about the film Girls, Girls, Girls. What is Ross Carpenter trying to buy back in the film Girls, Girls, Girls?
Isn't it a boat?
It is. It's a sailboat.
There you go.
Correct. Last question. Which Elvis song is based on the French phrase plaisir d'amour, literally translated as the pleasure of love?
I don't know. Can I Fall in Love?
Wise men say only fools rush in, but I can't help falling in love with you.
Can't Help Falling in Love is correct.
There you
Good
go.
job.
Sweet.
You got all 5 of them. You did better than I did last week.
I like those. Well, mine were specifically aimed toward you to try to,
True, trip me up. Yeah.
Trip you and fool you.
Totally.
Cool.
So,
all right. Well, let's get to our main topic.
Yeah, last week we made an offhand reference to the Double Trouble soundtrack, and you and I were talking about what topic to do. And, just when you think that we're going to zig, we decide to zag. And so, rather than doing the Double Trouble album review, we decided to go for Spinout.
You better stop real still. Look both ways. Listen.
It's Elvis. Elvis Presley. Swinging low and spinning fast in his biggest flick yet, Spinout. Hear Elvis's Spinout album on RCA Victor. From MGM in Metro Color.
Watch those curves, Elvis. Here.
All right.
Why does this one keep coming up for you? Because you have picked 5 songs from this album as Song of the Week over the course of our run.
Because this is the 3rd album I actually bought for myself.
So
the first
album.
The first was 50 Years, 50 Hits, which we've talked about. The second was the Sun collection, because I was like, well, I have all the Elvis songs I need. I have 50 songs. That can't be any more than that. So obviously I got to get some Sun stuff. So I had the Sun, and then I was like, then I obviously did more research. I'm like, yeah, I hardly have anything at all. So next time I was at my local department store, the Bay, which it's like the big store here.
Yeah.
Actually, it used to be. I don't think it's as big anymore because they used to have like a music section, like TVs, like appliances and toys. Now it's mostly I think clothes, so I don't go there as much. It's not really a department store. They still have like pots and pans and all that kind of stuff, but they got rid of the stuff that used to be when I was a kid was like, wow, this is great. And yeah, well, next time I was there, they obviously had a CD tape section, so I picked up the Spinout tape because this was fairly cheap back then. It was obviously had to be under $10, and I bought that. But the thing that always threw me was Elvis looks different on the cover. He looks off, no?
Yeah, there's something.
His face is heavier.
Yeah, a little bit. I mean,
he doesn't look normal. He doesn't look like his normal self.
Yeah,
it's all rounded.
I think that I think it's a mix of, it's probably like the camera lens that they shot with, and also just the fact that he looks, a little
bloated,
puffy around the edge. Because I mean, even if I wouldn't even say bloated. Like, if you saw that guy on the street and you were just like, you didn't know that it was like Elvis Presley, you'd be like, yeah, that's just a guy. You wouldn't nitpick necessarily, the specifics of his weight. But even on the single for Spin Out, he has sort of that similar kind of puffiness in the cheeks.
Yeah, and I think this album actually came with an insert and it's like another image from that same photo shoot, and it's same thing. He looks kind of off in that, but besides that, I was like, I'll check it out. I don't think I saw Spinout at this time, so it was just buying it blind. And when I put it on, I was surprised by a lot of these songs. I was like, wow, these are good.
So you fell in love with the Spinout soundtrack?
Yeah, because I didn't have a lot of Elvis stuff back then, so I'd rotate a lot of them, and this got a lot of plays just because I didn't have anything else to play of Elvis's. So maybe that was it. It could be just nostalgia on my part. How about you? When's the first time did you come across this?
So some of the material I had heard over various compilations, collections of Elvis's movie materials, but I mean, honestly, the vast majority of it came later. There were box sets and things like that, and a lot of online stuff. Quite a few of these, like Beach Shack and Adam and Evil, and some of those I discovered on the Jordan's Elvis World website, with the streaming back in the early 2000s. And so it was really a hodgepodge for me. It was not until I think collection? The early 2010s. No, I had this one as a CD, but it was just a single CD. It was a reissue.
Okay.
And then I got the RCA albums collection, which was like where I really dove into it. But yeah, I really didn't spend much time with this album as like a whole. It was just sort of individual tracks here and there. Right. And so I never had quite the same feelings toward the songs as I think you do, which I think is fascinating. Because similarly, like we've talked about some of the early albums that I had, and I think a lot of Elvis fans are the same way, that like our first few albums that we spin are the ones that we absolutely have a deep affinity for. They're some of our favorites, even if they might not be everyone else's favorites.
Right. So I'd be curious to see, what do you think about it, and maybe our listeners, what they feel about these songs.
So the movie songs were largely recorded over 2 days, February 16th and 17th, 1966, for the Spinout soundtrack for the movie, obviously. A couple of the bonus tracks that got tacked on were recorded a few months later at RCA Studio B in Nashville in May. And then the last one to be recorded was one of the bonus songs we'll get to, but that came much later in June 66. But
weren't some of them recorded during How Great Thou Art, right?
That's correct. Yeah. The first two big ones were, But yeah, so let's go ahead and dive right in. So first up, Stop, Look, and Listen.
When I was a little bitty boy, sitting on my papa's knee, I still remember every word my papa said to me. Now, boy, if you ever meet a pretty woman walking down the street, you better stop real still, look both ways, listen, or you'll get in trouble when you see her go strutting by, giving you that evil eye, and she got a kind of dreamy look.
Man, I don't know if it's just me, but when I read the title, I start singing Rubberneckin'.
yeah,
That's my
if you're more familiar with it. Yeah, this one I think is very underplayed. This one, it hasn't been a song of the week for us. This is from Joy Byers, who obviously did some excellent songs for Elvis, like It Hurts Me and Come On Everybody and some other songs. I don't think this is as strong as that, but apparently, did you know, this predates Elvis recording it. This is a cover.
Oh, really?
Yeah, Ricky Nelson did a version of this in '64.
When you see her go strutting by, giving you that evil eye, yet she's got a kind of dreamy look, just enough to get you shook. Now, boy, don't you lose your head, pay attention what your papa said. You better stop real still, look both ways, listen, or you get into trouble.
I think we might have talked about that. I forgot to listen to it in prep, but how is it?
It's okay. I don't know how I would see, because Bill Haley also did a version which is pretty bad. He did that in '65. I'd say Ricky's is better than Bill Haley's, but I don't know if I would put Ricky's over Elvis or I would put Elvis over Ricky's, but that's more to do with the arrangement on Elvis's than the vocal, right, which I think is fine. Right. And I just think maybe Ricky Nelson has a better arrangement on it. So,
but how great are those drums at the beginning? I think it's a great way to open this album, like a up tempo rocker. Obviously, as you said, it's not amazing, but I think it's a cut above the rest of his like film fare.
Yeah.
At least he's trying to rock out, and the ending interesting where he kind of just abruptly ends. But yeah, I don't know. I never minded this song back in the day. I still don't.
Yeah, and what's kind of unusual, I actually bothered to, just because I had the time, I listened to the whole Spinout sessions in prep for this, and it seems like across the board for the soundtrack material, he seems like he's in a pretty good mood, all things considered, and I think that shows in the performances, by comparison to something like Double Trouble, where he just sounds completely tired and disinterested, even though this is before the How Great Thou Art sessions. He's joking, and he is working himself up to sort of gritting himself down for the more rock elements of some of these songs. And I think he works himself up to something here. Yeah,
that's good. The next one, Adam and Evil. It's another song similar to Stop, Look, and Listen. It's like an up-tempo rocker, again, cut above the normal stuff that we would get during this time period. The lyrics are whatever. But just listen to the music and Elvis's vocals, and that's what kind of carries that song for me.
Now Adam and Evil, they go hand in hand. Eve taught him sin, that's the way it all began. But every time you kiss me, my heart pounds like a drum. So if trouble is a woman, trouble, here I come. I'm lonely like Adam, you're evil like Eve. I shouldn't take forbidden fruit.
Also, what's that Egyptian style tune that they put in there? Because I've heard that number of places.
Yeah, that's the melody, The Streets of Cairo, which I dug up information a couple years ago when I was doing the Roustabout Blue Suede review. Because the 1893 World's Columbian Exposition in Chicago is where Little Egypt first premiered and also where the first Ferris wheel ever was. But the song was popularized at that event, at that World's Fair. And so that's sort of where all of the worst stereotypes about Arabia and sort of the conflation of Egypt and Middle Eastern culture in the West started at the World's Fair in Chicago in 1893. And so for some reason, Boots Randolph is playing the Streets of Cairo melody in here. I don't know why. I don't know what that has to do with Adam and Eve and Adam and Evil. Yeah. I was almost... As I was listening to it, I was like, could you call this a spiritual sequel to Mean Woman Blues, but like via Harem Scarum?
Maybe, but calling this a sequel to that, it just seems wrong.
Spiritual sequel. I mean, it's about how, I
don't know. It's just Adam and Eve also. What are some religious themes going on here?
Yeah, I mean, just playing off, interesting.
Yeah, next, number 3, All That I Am. So back in the day, this was like a skip track for me.
Really?
We got these 2 up-tempo numbers, and now Why Am I Falling Asleep? This is like to me, it's like an Almost in Love precursor. It had that same vibe to me. Now I'm a bit more forgiving. I can hear that. Now I'm a bit more forgiving. It's a fine song, although the recording, for whatever reason, is really flat. Like the fidelity is off. It doesn't pop for me. What do you think?
All that I am, or ever hope to be, lies in your hands. You are my destiny. When you are in my arms, I rule the world.
Yeah, I tend to agree, and this is something I wanted to talk about across. Like, it's not as noticeable on the first 2 songs. There's a little bit in Stop, Look, and Listen, but overall, like, the recording team, to be fair to them, like, the album does sound better than the 65 soundtracks, like Frankie and Johnny and Harem Scarum.
Right.
But the problem with these soundtracks is that they pushed Elvis's voice so far in the front.
Yeah. It's like
so
clipping
loud.
Almost.
Yeah, and it buries everything else to where you just can't get the sense of any of the musicality of what's there. But it's a shame because otherwise it just sounds like hissy. And yeah, I think this is where you get some of that, the thing that Elvis was frustrated about, that, we've heard the stories of him being frustrated that they would push his voice out in front of everything else. And this is like a key example number one of that. But it's not bad, as like an actual melody itself. This is another Sid Tepper, Roy Bennett song. Right. And so like they had done good songs for Elvis. Is this their best work? Probably not. It's not overtly challenging. But I will say that like in the arrangement, there's some pretty strings that you can hear on this. It's not bad. This was on the single with Spinout, and it was an easy listening hit for Elvis. It didn't crack the top 40, but in the UK it was a top 20 hit. So clearly some Elvis fans like it, but yeah, I think it's hampered by a bad mix.
Yeah. But number 4, this is one of the standout tracks for me, like one of my favorite of this whole album. And like, I didn't even know it back in the day, but considering it's by Pomus and Schumann and they bring back that Bo Diddley beat, it's no surprise this caught my ear.
It's the oldest game in the world and you gotta know how to play it. Tell a yes in so many ways, but never ever say it. That's how I'll keep going on. Here today, tomorrow gone. That's the kind of life for me, being free like I wanna be. Here's the secret of my success. Never say yes, no, never say yes.
Wasn't this a song of the week for me even?
This was episode 137.
Yeah, this is an awesome song for me. Like, it never left my rotation. You can go check that episode if you want me hear me wax about it. But what about you? What do you think of it?
Yeah, re-listening to it, I was kind of won over by, that Bo Diddley beat, and I think the arrangement's good. I think just it's the lyrics are a little mediocre. It's not, I don't think it's Pomus and Schumann's best work. It's better than I think a lot of the rest of the material on the soundtrack.
It's one of their weaker a weaker material for them is much stronger than his typical stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. And this has to be one of the later songs that he ever recorded from them, right? Because, later on he would do, Mort Schumann's You'll Think of Me in 1969, but this is probably close to near the last Pomus Schumann song that he did that was new. But yeah, lyrically it's just sort of this bog standard, like, I'm going to be a free bachelor forever type song. But that's pretty typical of Elvis's movies in the mid-'60s. So the Bo Diddley beat saves it.
Totally. Number 5 is Am I Ready? Sid Tepper, Roy C. Bennett again. Not a bad song. Again, it sounds like Elvis's voice is so pushed up so far that it's distracting. I really wish they'd done a better job mixing it and even recording it. Like, it just doesn't sound that good.
Am I ready? Can my heart be true? Am I ready to fall in love with you?
Yeah, it sounds bad. Yeah. Just straight up. And it's a shame because it's also a very beautiful melody. Like, this is another one of those songs that, was based on a public domain song. This was adapted from To a Wild Rose by Edward McDowell, which is a really beautiful melody. But, shame that it sounds hissy. And I think on the ballads, they really tried to, and it's strange because there's a bootleg out there with all the soundtrack outtakes, and they sound pretty all right. People who are listening to this, even now on the official streaming services, they're not getting the best version of this song by far.
One love, one girl, one dream shared by two. Am I? Man, I'm sorry.
2006, take 7. 6, rather. Take 6, 2006, take 6.
One love, one girl, one dream shared by two.
But, Tepper and Bennett, they still could, like, Elvis could sing this in his sleep, but it's still pretty good.
Yeah. Next is the infamous Beach Shack. We've talked about this before, but man, it's one of my guilty pleasure songs. Actually, wait, forget that. Like, I don't feel guilty about this. I think this is a great song. Also, those outtakes are great. I just think fun when I hear this. It gives me the vibe of like a fun beach party or some kind of luau. And it's the only song where Elvis has etchings. So, it has that.
When you're through swimming, I'll dry your back. Come and relax, girl, in my little beach shack. What you think I am? Yeah. In my little shack.
In my beach shack.
What you think I am, dumb?
So, I was re-listening to it for this, and I gotta say, maybe I was just in the right headspace, but I kind of had fun listening to this. There are times when you're just in the right mood, and like that slight sort of, I don't know what you would call it, like calypso-y, Caribbean, mock Caribbean feel.
You can limbo.
It kind of works for it. It's lyrically, it's kind of a dumb song. Clearly,
sure,
it's dum-de-dum-de-dum.
Yeah.
But,
what do you think I am?
I think the scene is worse in the film. But taken in isolation, I think this is all right. This is... I would even go to say that this is not the worst song on the album now.
Nah. This is just fun. I always thought this was a fun song, so I always liked it.
Yeah.
So flipping over to side 2, we get Spinout, the title track. And I think this is one of the better title tracks from his film.
This is a favorite of mine. This was my song of the week back on episode 112.
Nice. That's a great rocking song that essentially it's like metaphor after metaphor of driving and being in a relationship, no?
She'll get your heart going fast, then she'll let you run out of gas. So spin out. Spin out. The road to love is full of danger signs. Too many guys were lost across those double lines. Don't you know she's out to prove?
Yeah, I mean, it's comparing a woman with a race car and comparing, having a relationship with racing, and all the double entendres and wordplay. Like, I am all over that. Like watch those curves.
Yeah.
I've always really liked this song. I don't remember if when I did this as Song of the Week, I had a chance to talk about, but there is a demo of this from the Glenn Campbell Sings for the King CD that came out. And it's pretty good. Like, it's very, very similar to how Elvis and the band eventually recorded it. But it's still very solid. And weirdly, I found a thing this year, or I guess last year, 2022, that I did not know existed that came out when that CD dropped. They apparently did a dance remix of the Glenn Campbell version.
She knows she's up to prove that she can really score. Never saw pop smooth like that before. Just drag you down, oh, that's a goal. Scoot before you lose control. It's been out.
Yeah, I thought this was cool, but very strange. Like, why would they do it's not like a lot of people would have bought that album. So why do a dance remix to a song that probably no one would be like dancing to?
Yeah.
It's just weird, but interesting though. It's very good.
Totally. Yeah. And it's a shame that there, back on the YouTube days, there was a sort of a reworking of the song by a YouTuber who had overdubbed some stuff that sounded really good, but there's never really been a remix of this. And I think that I think the Elvis version is overdue for an official remix.
Sure, for sure. Bangkok, where are you?
No, somebody else, somebody better.
Better?
Yeah.
Get away from me. Next,
Smorgasbord, another Tepper Bennett song.
Some take just apple pie, some take just cake. I'll take the dish I please, please the dish I take. I'm just wild about the smorgasbord. I heard a craving for smorgasbord. A little kiss here, a little kiss there. That's smorgasbord.
Yeah, even though this isn't like an up-tempo song, I was never a fan of it. Like, it's fine, but never really caught my ear. I'm not sure why, but it just never did. Did you like it?
Yeah, I think this is the worst song on this album.
Oh, wow.
Even worse than Beach Shack. And I'm not the biggest fan of Beach Shack, but sometimes I can get in the right headspace. I've never been in a headspace where a Smorgasbord does anything for me. Even like Boots Randolph, he tries his damnedest with that solo, but even he can't save it.
Yeah, it's just such an odd concept, Smorgasbord, and to sing about it. Like, what? I don't...
Yeah. I mean, really just comparing picking women to picking food off of a smorgasbord of food. Like,
So
just the concept of itself is
weird.
pretty terrible.
Yeah.
But
and then finally, I'll Be Back, which is a song I like. Wiseman and Sid Wayne. Yeah, I always liked this song. I don't know why. It sounded great to me. It's a great way to end the film and the soundtrack songs. Gives me shades of like G.I. Blue Elvis vocals, like similar tempo, the marching style vocals. Yeah.
I'll be back. I'm coming back. Don't throw away that welcome mat. Door I'm hoping will still be open. A teeny weeny crack to your shack. So hear that love light burning. I'll be back. I'll be back. Yeah, I'll be back. Yeah, I'll be back.
This was your song of the week back on episode 157. I think I was a little harder on it than maybe I needed to be at the time. And this is one you mentioned at the time that they knocked this out in only one take because, you know, and I think it was just that it wasn't that challenging.
Right.
On that same Glenn Campbell CD, there's a demo for this, and again, it's basically identical.
Right.
Again, I think you caught me in the right headspace suggesting this album. Mm-hmm. This is pretty good, you know, in the right context, and it's got, like I said, Elvis sounds a little more engaged, and the guitar work's not bad. I would even go as far as to say, in terms of the soundtrack material that's actually here, like as a movie soundtrack,
right?
This probably isn't one of the, you know, this would not even be in the lower half of like Elvis soundtracks. This is pretty good overall.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. All right, let's get to the bonus songs because these are the songs that a lot of people bought this soundtrack for, I think.
Well, most people didn't buy the soundtrack at all, but
later on,
if they had, they would have discovered some pretty damn good songs here.
So Tomorrow Is a Long Time is the first one, Bob Dylan, who we just talked about before. We've talked about in the past. Like, I think this is the first time Elvis is doing Dylan.
Yeah.
And it's buried in this album as a bonus song. It's nuts that like the RCA or the Colonel didn't see fit to release a whole album of these songs here. Like, I don't get it. But yeah, this was recorded during How Great Thou Art, and I can tell you Elvis is way more into this song than the other songs on this. It's like a great folk rock song.
Yes, and only if my own true love was waiting, if I could hear her heart softly pounding, only she was lying by me, then I'd lie in my bed once again.
Yeah, no, and this was Jamie Kay's Song of the Week on episode 118, and was obviously, you know, we've heard before the stories that Elvis was inspired not so much by Bob Dylan's version, but by Odetta's 1965 version.
If my true love was waiting, if I could hear his heart softly pounding, only if he was Then I'd lie in my bed once again.
Yeah, I've just always loved the smoothness of Elvis's voice, just how warm he sounds. That they pace themselves deliberately throughout the course of this. They're not rushing it. They're giving the song the time. I mean, this is one of like the longest Elvis masters there is. Studio masters. Running at almost 5.5 minutes. It's just so laid back and measured and deliberate. And I have nothing but good things to say about Elvis's version of Tomorrow Is a Long Time. And from what I understand, Bob Dylan liked it too.
That's praise. Next, Down in the Alley. This is one of my favorite songs of this album. I love this track. Elvis covering the Clovers again, and like, wow, more of this, please. I don't understand why Elvis didn't record. Why did he record this during the gospel sessions? Like, just a throwaway track, but why not record? Do a whole session of these types of songs, like these down and dirty R&B songs. Do you get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
He liked these songs, but why not do a whole concept album of this kind of stuff?
Down in the alley, just you and me. We're going bowling till 3:30. Just rocking and reeling, we'll get that feeling down in the alley. Oh, baby G, I plant you now and dig you later, 'cause you're a fine, sweet potato. We'll have a ball, and that ain't all. Down in the alley, just you.
Or even, barring that, even just a collection of the non-gospel material that was recorded around this time. Because there was good stuff in here. Like, not only was, Down in the Alley and Tomorrow's a Long Time, but he had, Beyond the Reef and Come What May and Fools Fall in Love. Like, that should have been an album. Yeah, High Heel Sneakers. It should have been an album. The 66 and 67 material, that quiet comeback, as Ghosty Wills called it. It was so good. And people had no idea that it was here, because the movies were so formulaic that even as engaged as Elvis is on that soundtrack material, it's still not even these three songs here at the end are just so good by comparison.
This is stuff he's really into.
Yeah, I mean the soundtrack material is just we're making do, with what he's got. But he is really turning in great stuff here. And the last song on the album is just an incredible vocal performance by Elvis. It's not vocal gymnastics, but just the control on I'll Remember You is just so good.
I'll remember you. Your voice is soft as the warm summer breeze. Your sweet laughter, mornings after, ever after, I'll remember you.
Yeah, what a way to end the album. When, as you said, when Elvis is passionate about what he's recording, this is what we get. The first time I heard this song, it was right away. They just hooked me. I know I made it seem like back in the day when I heard a slow song, I was Skip. But honestly, though, the song just has to catch my ear, no matter how slow it is. And this is one of those songs. So, this obviously this song has it has a lot going for it, but it held a special place in my heart. But it is going to be even more so now because I actually played it during my mom's funeral. So whenever I hear this is what I'm always going to be thinking of it. But even my wife, who is not an Elvis fan, she's like, wow, this is a really special song. She never obviously heard it before, but she's like, I didn't even know this existed, but this is excellent.
Yeah. That's so awesome.
I know. And he did this again during the Aloha special, right?
Aloha,
the Kuili benefit. And have you heard his version? It's not as good.
Oh yeah, it's so good.
No, I don't like it.
Oh, I like Kuili's version.
Like a lounge song.
But that's kind of the way. Like he was that kind of entertainer.
Yeah,
like he was kind of a lounge act.
To your arms someday, I'll return to stay. Till then, I'll remember too every bright star we made wishes upon. Love me always, promise always. Ooh, you'll remember too.
But yeah, this was your song of the week back on episode 41, so early in our run. This was a first-year pick for you.
So you know I like it.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I genuinely like Kuili's version as well.
How about Don Hose?
Don Hose is pretty good too. Yeah, I remember listening to that when you had that as your song of the week. And
I don't know, they all pale in comparison.
Oh
to Elvis.
Yeah, Elvis is like he owns this song. Like it's just an incredible. And you know, not only did he revisit in Aloha, but the Madison Square Garden version is just, you know, chef's kiss.
Chef's kiss. So all in all, though, I think this is a very, very strong soundtrack. I don't know what you think. I always thought that this was strong.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of the soundtrack albums that were put out, when you look at for me, like Girls, Girls, Girls will always still be my favorite. And like, I'll have a lot of affinity for GI Blues because like you with Spinout, I had that one very early in my fandom. But as I'm like sitting here looking at all of them and revisiting it here, I think this one sits a little higher than I had long given it credit for. Right. You know, I think that this is definitely, and partly helped by the fact that there are some just incredible bonus songs. I think that you can easily put this above, you know, I mean, obviously the bad ones, you know, Harem Scarum, Paradise Hawaiian Style, Frankie and Johnny. But I would put this probably, maybe not as high as Blue Hawaii or King Creole, but maybe comparable to Loving You, maybe?
This is on the higher end of the Elvis soundtracks.
Yeah, this is in the top half for sure. Yeah, I agree. Maybe I would even say this is probably the last good soundtrack album. Like, there's a rut, you know, in the middle with Girl Happy and Harem Scarum, Frankie Johnny, Paradise Hawaiian Style. But Spin Out is pretty good. Then you have another couple that aren't very good. But
I wonder how this compares to Speedway, because I got to revisit that, because that has bonus songs too.
Yeah, well, Ryan and I obviously did the movie review, but that album is pretty much like half and half bonus songs and songs from the movie, in the similar way to how Loving You was like half and half between studio material that wasn't in the movie and what was in the movie.
Thematically, though, those two are similar. Speedway, Spin Out.
Yeah, they are. You know, and even though Speedway was more NASCAR and Spin Out was, you know, more just general car racing. You know, but yeah, I mean, it released October 31st, 1966. So on Halloween,
you can go check this out.
And it didn't, I mean, it was a top 20 pop album, but it didn't do as well by comparison to the earlier soundtracks. I'm surprised it even did that well, given how far Elvis's credibility as a rock performer had fallen in the 2 years. Mm-hmm. You know, because you drop stinkers like Harem Scarum, you know, and people fly away pretty quickly. But Elvis still had a very strong fan base that stuck by him. Mm-hmm, and if they picked it up, they were going to be rewarded if they were paying attention.
Right.
So, yeah, I think it's pretty good.
Cool. All right, let's head on over to Song of the Week.
Here he is, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Elvis Presley.
Well, get out of that kitchen and rattle those pots and pans.
What a night. Ooh, what a night it was. It really was such a night. Well, when Monday comes, she's Tuesday. When Tuesday comes, she's Wednesday. Somewhere in the heart of Rome. He talked and talked, and I heard him say, I know that you've been told it's not fair to tease. It's the edge of reality.
I picked a song from another soundtrack that I think highly of, Fun in Acapulco. I picked El Toro, 1963.
There's a legend of a famous matador who went to meet El Toro, though he fought as he had never done before. He could not beat El Toro.
It's written by Bill Giant, Bernie Baum, and Florence Kay, who we've discussed many, many times before. They wrote songs like Edge of Reality, Do the Vega, Catch It On Fast, and the wonderful Power of My Love. This was recorded on January 23rd, 1963 at Radio Recorder Studio B in Hollywood. Obviously, the whole theme of the song works better in context of the film, but man, what a great little song. It's like so much grandiose and lots of pomp and circumstance in this. Elvis tells a tale much like Marty Robbins in El Paso. Sure, it's not as great of a story, but, it has its moments. He's telling, he's spinning a yarn. Essentially, El Toro is like a badass bull, and he fights a matador and defeats him. Although, how do you defeat a matador? Are you essentially not dying? That's how you defeat a matador.
Yeah, he didn't win because he didn't kill El Toro.
Yeah. So the bull won.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, and then the second time the bull wins again, but this time the matador's killed, and that's the story. That's the way the mop flops.
In the lonely fields, beneath the pale moonlight, he sought the bull, and they fought once more. When they found the matador, they saw him dying. He'd never see tomorrow.
Anyway, the story isn't as important as the way that Elvis sings the song. Like, he gets to flex his operatic vocals a bit, and the music is great. It kind of swells in certain places. All the percussions, the trumpets. I love all that stuff. And yeah, as to repeat what I said, like, this is one of the greater soundtrack albums. Better than Spinout, I think, even.
Oh, yeah.
What do you think about this song?
Yeah, no, this is... The songwriters at Hill and Range, like, especially on a soundtrack like Fun in Acapulco, they rose to the occasion, of what was needed. And the assignment was obviously, let's try to make Elvis sort of a Dean Martin,
sure.
And try to make him sort of that type of character or, a crooner. But not only did the songwriters rise to the occasion, but Elvis himself rose to the occasion. And yeah, this is just a fantastic soundtrack, fantastic song. I like I like pretty much this whole album. So no criticisms from me here. It's just it's a good song.
It's not as good as Bullfighter Hook Was a Lady, but
no, it doesn't have that clever kind of hook to it. Yeah. But it's still it's still good.
It's really good. They did 2 takes, with the master being a splice of takes 1 and 2. Take 1, there's a bunch of studio chatter and Elvis piping in that they should release some bulls in there in the studio for atmosphere. and then the next take, so take 1 was a full take, but I guess there was some issues in the beginning. So take 2, they only did a minute of the song. Just to fix some of the stuff in the previous take, and then they just spliced those together, and we got the master. And the song was released on the Fun in Acapulco soundtrack in November of '63. And you can check out Elvis perform the song in the club in the film Fun in Acapulco. It's good. It's nothing spectacular. He's just being very dramatic in the scene and serious. No tomfoolery going on. Yeah. But he looks good. Good performance. But yeah, that's pretty much it. No real covers.
No covers?
Or anything.
Wow.
No, not at all. So that was my song of the week. Short, but I still I'll probably eventually get through the whole soundtrack when it's said and done, because I really like it.
Short but sweet.
The bull El Toro brought him defeat and fame, and to his sorrow the matador knew shame.
Cool. What do you got?
All right. So for my song of the week, I went for a non-Elvis song, kind of. I can already hear some of our listeners going, non-Elvis song, I'm going to click away. No, hold off. You're going to be surprised. From 1972, the band Bread did the song Aubrey.
And Aubrey was her name, a not so very ordinary girl or name, but who's to blame for a love that wouldn't bloom, for the hearts that never played in tune.
This was written by David Gates, member of Bread, and I mean, David Gates grew up in Oklahoma with parents who were very heavily into music. His father as a band leader, mother as a music teacher, very musically encouraged growing up. Started, a band, and then eventually moved out to California. Got jobs in the music industry as a songwriter, arranger, studio musician, producer, entertainer in his own right. He actually worked with Elvis, weirdly enough, in 1968. On the production of the soundtrack for Toro as one of the arrangers alongside Hugo Montenegro and Billy Strange. Was his one sort of crossing paths with Elvis before forming Bread. Bread was formed between David Gates, Rob Royer, and Jimmy Griffin, and they got the name from a bread truck that was driving past as they were trying to think of a name. And they were most popular in the 1970s. They were sort of pop. A lot of pop ballads, sort of easy listening rock. And eventually the group sort of wound down due to personality differences, and Gates sort of spun off as a solo artist, sort of performing and recording sporadically through the 80s and 90s. And then eventually Bread did have a reunion in the mid-90s. But the song itself, Aubrey, came out in 1972 on the Bread album Guitar Man. Unrelated, no relation.
Wait a second.
And it was also the third to final Bread single, followed only by Lost Without You Love and Hooked on You, which were the last two Bread singles. And it did pretty well for him at the time. It was not like a great, big like number one hit, but it was a top 20 hit for him. But what do you think? I sent, or did you listen to Bread's version of Aubrey?
Yeah, this is a pretty good song. Very easy listening. I can totally picture myself putting this in my rotation. It sounds really good.
Yeah, it's just this really beautiful ballad with this very lush kind of orchestral arrangement, lots of strings, very melancholy, moody, reflective. And essentially the song is about the singer, a man looking back at this romance that he had, sort of this fleeting romance with Aubrey, and sort of wondering, what went wrong with it, and kind of pondering, who could even be blamed for a love that just doesn't work out and passes by so quickly, but also like wondering if she was the one, and trying to ponder like, what was it my fault, and I just want to, I would love to be with her again, but knowing he can't. And it's just this very reflective, quiet little ballad. And I think, honestly, maybe one of the most beautiful pop ballads that I've ever heard.
Ever?
Just the way that it's so simply and plainly sung. It's just heart-wrenching the way that David Gates performs it. It's just wonderful. I really love his performance in the original Bread recording, and some of the lyrical work that he has. Some of these lines are just so wonderful. Listen, like there's maybe I was absent or listening too fast, catching all the words, but then the meaning going past. Or I'd go 1,000 times around the world just to be closer to her than to me. Like that's some just right in your heart.
God, I miss the girl, and I'd go 1,000 times around the world just to be closer to her than to me. And Aubrey was
Have you ever heard the song At 17? It reminds me of that. The Janis Ian song. Have you ever heard that?
I don't think I've heard that.
It's essentially another sad type song where she ponders about the fact that she doesn't think she's very attractive compared to other girls.
I learned the truth at 17, that love was meant for beauty queens. In high school, girls with clear skin smiles who married young and then retired. The Valentines I never knew.
I don't know why it just gave me that vibe, but maybe check that out too.
Interestingly.
You'll be crying.
But reportedly he was inspired by the film Breakfast at Tiffany's, not specifically to the actress Audrey Hepburn, but more with the idea of being with a woman and knowing a woman over such a short, intense amount of time. And do
you think it has anything to do with the name? Audrey and Aubrey?
I don't think so.
Just a coincidence?
Yeah. But it was covered.
Did you ever watch that film, sorry?
Oh, yeah, in high school.
Okay. I remember I watched it and I was like, wow, this has bad stereotypes in it.
Yeah.
Anyway, go on.
But it was covered by a few artists that we'll be familiar with. In 1973, it was covered by Johnny Mathis. Oh. And also in 1973, Perry Como did a version on his album And I Love You So named after the Don McLean song that Elvis also recorded. But both versions, both Johnny Mathis and Perry Como, excellently performed. Perry Como's it's not quite spoken, but there's an element to it, where it's even more sort of reflective and there's a lot more hesitations in it. He's got a wonderful performance of it.
And Aubrey was her name. We tripped the light and danced together to the moon. But where was June? No, it never came around. If it did, it never made a sound.
Johnny Mathis is pretty faithful to the Bread original, but still, like, Johnny Mathis, incredible vocalist, so still really good.
Oh, God, I miss the girl. And I'd go a million times around the world just to say she had been mine for a day.
But then we'll get to the version that I'm talking about today. This comes from September 2nd, 1974. This has only ever been released once on the From Sunset to Las Vegas FTD. This was in an Elvis concert. And if you listen carefully, Elvis does not only recite the lyrics to it, but also sings a little bit, just harmonizing with Cheryl Nielsen, who he brought out. This is the infamous Desert Storm closing show of the fall 1974 engagement, where Elvis goes off on various rants about people calling him strung out, karate, Priscilla and Mike Stone, his time in the hospital. There's a bit where he's like ranting about Bill Cosby not being there. It's just,
why did he want Bill Cosby there?
Well, he was trying to thank Bill for, I guess, when Elvis was in the hospital, he asked Bill to cover for him, like do a show, do a comedy show, and Bill did. And then he was supposedly there that night, but then he disappeared in the show. And so like Elvis goes off and he is like, oh, I bet he's out in the lobby with Colonel Parker gambling. But it's a rough listen overall. The show it's one that eventually I think you and I will probably get around to talking about.
Sure.
But it's not a fun listen because Elvis is clearly not well, emotionally, mentally. So yeah, I mean, he brings Cheryl Nielsen out, and pianist Pete Holland is playing, and it honestly, I'm not the biggest fan of Cheryl Nielsen's vocals.
Join the club.
Elvis,
do you think he tries too hard?
I don't necessarily think that he tries too hard. I think that Elvis had a very deep fondness for high tenor and high soprano singing.
Yeah.
And Cheryl offered that in spades, and as a tenor vocalist. And similarly, like Kathy Westmoreland, and Millie Kirkham for that matter. Elvis just always had a deep affinity for that high voice singing. And that's what Cheryl does with the song. And he introduces it as a song that was originally by Bread, but asks the audience to listen to Cheryl sing it because they never sung it like this cat has.
I want to do a song called Aubrey. This was got by a group called Bread. But they ain't never sung it like this cat has. And Aubrey was a name, a not so very ordinary girl. But who's to blame for a love that wouldn't bloom for the hearts that never played him tune?
And Cheryl sings it straight for about the first 2/3 of the song, but suddenly about 2 minutes in, just as Cheryl sings the line, I'd go 1,000 times around the world just to be closer to her than me, suddenly a voice chimes in, sort of singing a counter melody.
Closer to her than to me. And Aubrey was a name. I never knew her. I never knew her. But I loved her just the same. But I loved her just the same. I loved her name. I loved her name.
And then there he is, reciting the lyrics ahead of the singing, sort of guiding Cheryl through the song, not too far removed from Softly as I Leave You. What do you think of this performance of it?
I wish Elvis sang the song.
Yeah.
That's what I think. I don't really care about listening to Cheryl Nielsen. I don't know. The dude to me, it just seems like he tries too hard to make his voice like that. I don't know. Maybe that's how he sings. It's not appealing to me. Although somebody like Frankie Valli, I can listen to all the time. Cheryl Nielsen just grates me. Maybe it's also, what's with those outfits that he would wear as well? Where I was like, is he a stripper or is he a singer? Because it's just bizarre outfits. Because that video you sent me, it's just images after images of Cheryl Nielsen and his outfits, and I'm like, what is this dude doing? Like, he's not even that built to be wearing these outfits that show off his guns. I'm like, or lack of guns. Yeah, I don't know. I just wish Elvis sang this and just did away with it. But I guess Elvis really liked his voice. Yeah, I like the Elvis parts, but I wish he actually sang the song like Bread did. But yeah, I'm surprised you brought this up. It just caught your ear.
Yeah, this kind of caught my ear, and I mean, I really like the original, and I mean, it's historically been the case on TCBcast that I go for like the really obscure, off the beaten path stuff that people mostly haven't heard, and this is very much one of them. But one cool thing that I caught that I don't think I've ever heard anybody else talk about is that if you listen to there's a line in the original where it says, "If I can't have the one I want, I'll do without the best."
I have learned to lead a life apart from all the rest. I can't have the one I want, I'll do without the best.
And instead of having Cheryl sing that, Elvis reciting the words ahead of time gives him a different line. And it's, "If I can't have the one I want, I'll do without the rest."
Right.
Changing the entire meaning of that end of the song and the whole kind of message of the song. Because ultimately, at the end of the day, the song, as written by David Gates, is about someone sort of realizing that, oh, well, I can't have Aubrey, so I will make do with what I can have. And just, right. I'll always hold that bit of her with me, Sure. But it's an acceptance, by the end of the song. But in the Elvis version where he's the one who changes that line. And some people I think could certainly, see this as a simple misreading of, like, oh, maybe he just said the wrong word, because the previous line is, ends with the word rest. But I think it's more than that. I think he probably made this a deliberate thing, given the context of this show, given how much he was talking about Priscilla and talking about their relationship together and how he was clearly bitter about how it had ended. I think that and this is the same show that on It's Midnight, he does the Listen Scylla, I think that this might be, and I have nothing to base this on other than the one lyric change, but it's fascinating to think about why he might have made this change. One that basically changes the entire meaning of the song to, if I can't have the one that I love, I would rather go without love altogether.
Yeah.
I've learned to lead a life.
I have learned to lead a life
apart from all the
rest.
If I can't have
the one I want,
I'll do without the rest.
I'll do without the rest.
And God,
I must go, and I'd go 1,000,000 times around the world just to say she had been mine for a day.
It's a fascinating thing to think about. And I love that earlier in the song, and just to make you all think for a moment, if you're not familiar with the song's lyrics, there's a earlier verse where the lyrics go, for a love that wouldn't bloom, for the hearts that never played in tune, like a lovely melody that everyone can sing. Take away the words that rhyme, it doesn't mean a thing. But in this case, Elvis took away one of the words that rhymed, and it changed the meaning of everything. And I think it's a heartbreaking reading of the song. Whatever, the quibbles about Cheryl Nielsen's performance, I'm glad that we have what little bits we do of Elvis speaking and harmonizing on the song. Because it is, by the end of it, too, he harmonizes on the end as well. It is a shame that he never performed it properly, never recorded it properly, but I'm grateful to have what we have. And it's just a wonderful song, and I hope people also revisit the version by Bread. And that's my song of the week.
Nice. I'm glad that you spotlighted, so maybe people who've never heard it, they can check it out and see what they, see what they feel. But cool. Absolutely. Awesome. All right. That's our episode for the week.
Very tight episode.
Let us know what you thought about Spinout soundtrack. What do you think of all the songs in it? Do you just like the bonus, or do you play the soundtrack stuff? What do you think about our 2 songs of the week? How can they do that, Justin?
Yeah, shoot us an email, tcbcast@gmail.com.
Awesome. And as we heard earlier, a lot of people are joining our Patreon. If people want to do that, how would they do that?
Yeah, you can support the show at patreon.com/tcbcast.
Awesome. Great beginning to the year. More stuff coming up. Hopefully more guests, I think, maybe lined up.
Yeah, we're working on some guests, and definitely. And also, don't forget, coming up soon, we're going to be appearing on We Say Yeah, Cliff Richard fan podcast by David Ghosty Wills. So keep an eye open for that on our social channels. We'll be sharing information about that as soon as it goes out.
All right. Well, it's a hot time in Florida.
And a rainy night in Georgia.
You've been listening to the TCBcast, an unofficial Elvis fan podcast. Justin Gosman and Gurdip Ladar have left the building.
Someone must have stomped on his head with those blue suede shoes.
Thank you and good night.